Greetings from Tennessee, which became the 16th state to join the Union on June 1st, 1796. Today, it ranks 17th in population with nearly 6 million residents.
The state, and then you travel through the beautiful rolling hills of Nashville in the middle of the state. Then you get to Memphis, where cotton was king. If you just travel that road, if you drive from Memphis to Nashville and Knoxville, you will see every conceivable kind of culture and music and background.
Those disparities have existed for generations. In the Civil War era, eastern Tennessee had strong pro-Northern sentiments. To the west, along the Mississippi River, Memphis was a major slave center, with a political temperament more akin to the Deep South. When the Confederacy was formed, Tennessee wavered. It was the last state to leave the Union, and the first state to be readmitted after the war. Tennessee's reluctance to secede reflected its history of service to the nation. From 1813 to 1815, the state's volunteer militia, commanded by native son Andrew Jackson, had distinguished itself, first in the Creek Indian War, and then against the British at the Battle of New Orleans.
And his playing a major role in the War of 1812, and in recruiting volunteers because the men loved to fight with Andrew Jackson.
One of Jackson's homegrown Tennessee volunteers went on to become a legend in his own time, Davy Crockett. After his battlefield service, Crockett turned to politics. Not surprisingly, that's when the line between the man and the myth began to blur.
Crockett really depicts him as someone who was of the common people. He becomes larger than life during his career in Congress.
Campaign flyers claimed that Crockett killed his first bear at the age of 3, that he preferred Davy to his given name David, and that he always wore a coonskin cap.
I think he really was, in many ways, more fictional than real in terms of that image.
When we have a reunion, at least 250 people show up. So there's quite a few descendants.
In its early history, most of what is now Tennessee belonged to the Cherokee Indian tribe. In fact, the state's name probably derives from a Cherokee settlement named Tennessee, which roughly translates as meeting place. It is a fitting description for the state today. Tennessee shares its borders with 8 other states, making it possible to reach 75% of the entire U.S. population in just a day's drive. Tennessee's central locale made Memphis a natural choice when FedEx picked a new transportation hub in the 1970s. Today, the city's airport has the largest cargo operation of any airport in the world. This proximity to major population centers has also made the Great Smoky Mountains the most visited national park in the country, attracting 9 million tourists a year.
The Smoky Mountains got its name because when you go out there and you look at the mountains, there's these low-lying kind of misty clouds that look like white smoke. It's really beautiful.
Although tourism is an important and growing industry here, the state's economy is powered by a wide variety of businesses, such as book publishing, healthcare, and
Also the automobile industry. We have Nissan, we have Saturn, which draw in over $1.7 billion a year for the economy of Tennessee.
The best-known business in the state, however, is country music, which owes much of its success to Tennessee's insurance industry.
WSM Radio was started by an insurance company. And so like a lot of companies in that day, they started a radio station to advertise their business. The Grand Ole Opry started in 1925 and was actually first known as the WSM Barn Dance, and later adopted the Grand Ole Opry name just a couple years later. In fact, the announcer came on the air and out of classical music programming and said, "You've been listening to selections largely heard from Grand Opera, and now we want to present the music of the Grand Ole Opry." And so that's how the name started. It stuck.
To accommodate the crowds clamoring to see the show, the Opry moved from the radio studio to Nashville's old Ryman Auditorium in 1943.
And people from all over the world come here for the next 31 years to see the Grand Ole Opry, America's radio show.
The Grand Ole Opry moved to its own 4,400-seat theater in 1974. It is one of the largest broadcast studios in the world. In 1945, a young Opry fan named Sam Phillips became an announcer and engineer at a Memphis radio station. But his passion was the blues music that had flourished since the early 1900s in the city's clubs on Beale Street.
He recognized that there was a very large pool of talented musicians, and no one was recording them. So he opened up Sun Records, and he recorded what many historians call the first rock and roll record, in 1951, Jackie Brinston's Rocket 88.
Today, Phillips is revered as the father of rock and roll. He was the first to record Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, Ike Turner, and of course, the King himself.
So we love Elvis, certainly I do and did. But Beale Street was the main street of Black America. And it was everything happens in Beale Street. You know, Elvis, as a young man, hung out on Beale Street, and he hung out with B.B. King, and he heard all those licks. He heard the blues. And so that combination of the blues and gospel, you know, they say the blues and gospel had a baby, and they called it rock and roll.
From Beale Street to the Grand Ole Opry to Sun Records, there was often more flowing than just the music, thanks to a beloved Tennessee character. Jack Daniels started working in a whiskey distillery at the age of 7. By the ripe old age of 14, he had bought the company.
He had a flair for marketing. One of the things he did was put it in a square bottle. Another thing he did was come up with this Old No. 7 brand name. We have no idea the story behind the name, but that name has stuck, and today Jack Daniels Old No. 7 is the #1 selling whiskey around the world, and we have Jack to thank for that.
And how's this for irony? The whiskey that's a favorite from Toronto to Tokyo cannot be purchased in Jack Daniels' hometown. Lynchburg, it turns out, is located in a dry county. No alcohol for sale here.
Look here, I'm talking about America, sweet America.